Welcome to your first step in Unreal Engine 5. The 5.3 version just dropped, and we are all very excited. But if this is your first time using the engine, the best idea would be to start with the basics. In this tutorial, we will cover everything you need to know in order to start creating content inside Unreal Engine. The first step is downloading the engine. While the engine is being installed, we will do a quick tour around the Epic Games launcher, because there is a lot of assets and materials that can be very helpful to us. Next, we will create our first project. We will then get acquainted with the Unreal Engine editor, so we are comfortable using it. We will create our first level, add a playable character, prototype a simple map, use blueprints to create game mechanics, learn about materials so we can decorate our map, and finally import assets from Quixel Bridge, so we can get an Unreal result. Now that you have the structure of what we're going to do, get ready and let's start! Learn to create an action game in Unreal Engine 5 at unfgames.com. The first step in our Unreal adventure is downloading the engine, which we can find at unrealengine.com. Here, we will find the download button. Let's click it, and in the next page, we'll see the recommended system requirements. If we scroll down a little bit, we will find the download launcher button. So let's just download it and install it like any other program. Once you download and install the Epic Games launcher, we can open it. Inside it, it will ask us for an Epic Games account. Here it says sign in later, but if we click here, we won't be able to download the engine. So we do need an Epic Games account. If we don't have one, we can click on sign up. And we can choose the method that works best for us. If you just choose mail, then it's just a matter of following the process. So just create your account and sign in. Before starting a quick tour of the launcher, let's go to the library tab. Here you will find the engine's installations that you have already, but if you don't have any, you can click on the plus button, select the engine version, which in our case will be the 5.3, and just click on install. In my case, I already was testing the preview version of the 5.3, so I only have an update button. So let's click on it, and yeah, let's just follow the installation options and agree to the messages that can pop up. You will be able to find the progress here in the download button. In the case that you're installing from scratch, let's click the add button, and let's say I want to install this version. Let's just click on it, and we just need to select a location. It's important that you do not select an external drive. This means an maybe solid state drive that is outside your machine. Why? Because it's slower than internal drives, and it can lead to weird issues whenever you're using the engine. So it's a good idea to install it either on your C drive or, well, in whatever internal drive that you have inside your computer. So it's just a matter of clicking install, and that's pretty much it. Now while this is installing, we can continue our quick tour around the launcher. After signing in, we will have full access to the Epic Games launcher. If we have played Fortnite, maybe we are already familiar with the store and with the library. But in our case, we will focus in Unreal Engine. So here, we will see these 5 tabs. The first one is the news, and here we will find everything related to the news of Unreal Engine. Here we will find more news, the YouTube channels, Q&As, forums, and the roadmap. Also, there will be feature content, feature screenshots that are usually community generated, weekly spotlights, and many more. The next tab is the samples. The samples are projects that the Epic Games team put out for us. So in our case, we can just download the project and pick around, see how they made, for example, this Electric Dreams demo, or maybe we just want to check out the MetaHumans or some animation, or this one is very useful at the start, the content examples, because it gives example on almost every feature, or well, the most important features that the engine has to offer. So it's very useful to just download it. You can just click on it and it will send us to the marketplace. And here you will have the options to get it. It will be free. And then you can create a project following the version that you need. Yeah. So that way you can explore inside any sample project. And that's not all. You have sample projects, but you also have sample games. Here is the lighter starter game. Very useful if you want to create a multiplayer shooter. The next one is the marketplace. This tab houses all the assets that we can get. There will be a lot of paid assets, but every month we can get maybe 4 or 5 assets for free. We just need to go here, free for the month. And don't forget to add to the cart and get it. So this gets refreshed every month, so don't forget to get them for free. Now you may be downloading a lot of assets. If you're using a solid state RAW and you don't have that much space in your computer, make sure to go to settings and here edit bulk cache location. This is where the actual assets will be stored, assets that you download from the marketplace and also sample projects. So if you are using 2 disks and you have one that maybe has more space than the other one and you want to save everything there, you can change the folder here. Let's go back. Here will be the library tab where we will see all the engine versions and the My Projects tab where we can see all the projects that have been created before. And you can see I have a lot of them. Maybe I should clean a little bit of it. The vault is the projects that you have gotten from either the samples tab or the marketplace tab. You can see that it's already consuming a little bit of my space in my computer, so that's why I wanted to show you where you can change the vault location. So every project that you have bought from the marketplace or plugins, if you have downloaded it, you will see that this arrow can remove the local content. But if you have not downloaded it, this arrow will be gray, and whenever you want to add it to a project, you select the project and then you will start downloading it. The last tab is the Twinmotion tab, and this is a free unlimited time trial. For Twinmotion, this is especially useful for our architectural visualization. So we won't dig deep into this part. It's just nice to have it there. So let's go back to library because this is where the magic starts. Once the engine has downloaded, let's click on Launch so we can start creating projects. When creating a project for the first time, you may find that Windows gives you a little bit of security alerts. Just allow the access so Unreal can get its full capabilities. Let's allow the access and let's wait for the Unreal Project Browser to launch. Here is the Unreal Project Browser, and we will find a lot of options. The first one is the recent projects, where we can see all the projects that we have created. Then we will have a tab for games, film, video and live events, architecture, automotive, and simulation. You will see that there are a lot of industries that use Unreal Engine, not only games, but in our case, we are focused on games. So let's click on games. Here we will have some templates that can help us speed up the process of creating new stuff or new experiences. But in our case, we're going to stick with the blank project because we want to discover everything that Unreal has to offer step by step. So here, select blank project. Here is the project location. By default is in Documents, Unreal Projects. You can change it. And here will be the project name. I will call it my first Unreal project. This will be the name of the folder of the project, and here we can define some settings of the project, if we want to use blueprints or if we want to also use C++. C++ is a coding language, so if you have experience with it, you can start with it. If you don't, then blueprints is just fine to learn some logic, and then we can go to C++. So let's leave it at blueprint. The target platform, we will select desktop. The quality preset, we'll select maximum. And the starter content, we will leave it as false, because I will show you how to add it later on. With this in check, or well, unchecked, we will create the project. This is the first look at the Unreal Engine editor. The big window is called the viewport window, and it shows exactly how the level will look if we were to play the game. Here at the top left we have the toolbar. Here we have the title of the level, currently untitled, and this is a sample level that gets created automatically. At the right side we have the name of the project, and if we hover on top of it, we will see the version of the engine. Here we will see the outliner panel, where it shows every actor inside our level, and we will define what an actor is in a minute, don't worry about it. But pretty much is everything that can be put inside a level is an actor. And if we click anything, either here or in our level, we will see that this detail panel gets filled up with options. And that's how we can edit most of our stuff in our level. Here in the bottom part of the editor, we have the content drawer, where most of the content will exist. The output log will show you messages that the engine tells you. Usually you can create your own messages, very helpful for debugging. Here we have the console command, and a lot more of information are useful tools that we can later touch on. Here is super easy to know if you have something unsaved, and you can click it if you want and save everything. But for now, this is the first look to our Unreal editor. So let's enjoy it a little bit. Now I will show you how to navigate inside the viewport. First, let's create a new level, File, New Level, and let's create a basic level so it's easier to work around this. I don't need to save this. And now we are in a new level. So if I want to look around this level, I can click on the viewport and hold my left click. If I do that, I can rotate my camera if I move my mouse side to side. And if I move it front and back, I will see that I can move my camera like if I was walking. Now, if I use my right click instead of the left click, then I get full rotation control of the camera. But I cannot move around. If I wish to move around like with the previous control scheme, then I can use the W, S, A, and D. So it's very comfortable, and we can also use the keys Q and E to go downwards with Q and upwards with E. These shortcuts work when you are holding either the right mouse button or the left one. That's the most common way of navigating the viewport. You can also hold the middle mouse button to pan around the level, which is also very useful in its own right. Also, while holding the right button, you can change the FOV by using the keys Z and C. So with come on, Z, you can change the FOV to a larger value, and with C, you can really zoom in by lowering that value. Now, if you wanted to select an object, for example, this light, and you're very far away, but you managed to select it, and now you want to focus on it, you can press the letter F. F. So with the letter F, you immediately focus on the object, or well, actor, if we want to name stuff correctly. We can focus on the actor immediately by pressing F. When we have an actor focused, we can use the Alt key. So I'll just hold it. I'm pressing it right now. And if I use the left mouse button, I also hold it, I can rotate around the focused actor axis. I now will release the left mouse button, but I will keep holding Alt. And if I now hold the right mouse button, I can zoom in and zoom out. And I did it in the opposite direction. So I can zoom out and zoom in. It's very useful to know this, so it's easier for us to place stuff in our map. So let's start by placing something in our map. We will go to this cube with a plus icon on top. We'll click it, and this is the Place Actor menu. We can actually put it into a panel if you like to see it. In my case, I prefer to get a better view of the map, so I'm just accustomed to using this menu. So here we will have some basic actors, basic lights, and if a light can go into a map, it's also an actor. But what I'm looking for is a shape, and a cube specifically. So let's just drag and drop a cube to our map. You will see that if I'm still holding my left button, it will not snap to anything until it collides with a floor or something like that. So for now, I'll put it floating around. As we learned, we can press the letter F, and I'll type it here again, F. And if I press it in my viewport, now I'm focusing this cube. Now, with the cube, we not only want this cube to be floating around, right? So in order to do something with it, we need to first move it around. Here we will have this gizmo, which is actually the move tool. With this move tool, we can move it, if we want, in the Z axis, in the X axis, or in the Y axis. How do I know which axes are what? It's because here, in the left side, I also have the axis, the world coordinates showing in my viewport. So it's pretty useful to have that there. Now, we want to rotate it. Here we will find the manipulation tools. If I only want to select stuff, you can just click around and be done with it. Move stuff. We already done that. Let's rotate stuff. And there we have it. Now we can scale, and we can see the axis in which we are scaling this cube. So we are scaling this cube as a little example, right? Now, every time you want to do a transformation to an object, you don't really want to click here and do it. It's a lot easier if you use the shortcuts that you can see on screen. So selection is Q, W is to move around, E is to rotate stuff around, and R is to scale it. Now, what happens if you want to follow the axis of my actor whenever I want to move it? Just on the side, we have this cycle that transform gizmo coordinate systems between world and local object space. If we click on it, now my movement gizmo is following the actual object coordinates. And because the object is rotated, then we can actually move it in these directions. But if I switch it again to the world coordinates, now it's following this world gizmo that I already showed you before. So now we can be absolutely sure that the z-axis is actually the z-axis. Pretty cool, right? Now, whenever we're moving stuff, we can snap it to a grid, an imaginary grid that exists inside the engine. I mean, it will be a lot easier to see it if I just delete this floor. So I'll just click on the floor and press the delete key, or we can just right click, edit, delete. Now we can see the actual grid. And we can change that grid by going here towards these numbers. Now we can clearly see the grid. How does this affect our object? Let me just undo or Control C so I get my floor back. So how does this grid affect my objects? Well, by default this was a 10. You can't really notice that it's in a grid. But if I change it to maybe 500, now you can see how it snaps to a position in that grid. Now, taking consideration is not actually snapping to the grid exactly. It's just adding 500 to the actual position. So this doesn't mean that, oh, I'm in 0 or I'm in 500 in X. No, it means that from the actual position, whenever I move it in X or Y or Z, then it will add 500. If we want to be free from the grid, we can actually disable it by clicking here. Now that the grid is disabled, my movement will be completely smooth. And it gives us a lot of freedom to play around by placing objects. I'm going to return my grid. I'm going to return it to 10. And what I just did can be applied also for the rotation and the scaling. With our actor selected, let's take a look to the details panel. Let me just scroll up. And if for whatever reason you don't have a details panel, you can bring it up by going to Windows, Details, and well, you can get even 4 of these details panel. Now with my actor selected, we can see the properties that it has. And I know it is an actor because every actor has a transform property set, which is the location. And if I move it around, I'll press the key W, I'll move it around, you will see that the numbers change. These are unreal units, and every unreal unit, well, every 1 unit is 1 centimeter. So here, we can also edit the value of the location by clicking and holding the left mouse. Just like that. Also the rotation. And we can even use these arrows to reset the value to the default value. In the case of the rotation is the 0, 0. So now my cube is in the default rotation. the scale will be 1, 1, 1, 1. And in the case of the location, it will be the 0, 0, 0, which is this one. So you can mess around here in the viewport and fix stuff in the details panel. You will be a lot more precise here, unless you are going for a more organic type of feel of the positioning of your actors in the map. So again, we're hearing this name, this term, actors. Anything that can be put in a map is an actor, and it can be put inside a map because it has this transform value. Oh, and if you want to snap any type of actor that has collisions to a floor, you can use the end key. If you just click on your object and press N, it gets snapped to the floor very easily. I also wanted to show you a quick way to work with objects or, well, actors. Whenever you hear objects on the map or actors in the map, it's mostly the same thing, so don't worry about it. So let's say I want to duplicate this object, this actor. We can right click and edit and duplicate, or Control D. If I use Control D, I'll get an actor almost in the same position, right? It's even easier, and I just deleted that previous actor. It's even easier if I just select the cube, and we know how to move stuff, right? Yeah. So we can hold the Alt key and move it. This will duplicate the actor immediately. Not only that, maybe I want to position it that way, and I can release the Alt key, but I can hold the Shift key, I will hold it now, for my camera to follow the movement of the current actor. So it's very useful, and we can use Alt and Shift at the same time to duplicate my actors. Now let's say I rotated it this way and I want this other actor in the center to copy this rotation. We can copy the values here, rotation, right click, copy, and you can see the shortcut, which is very useful, which is Shift right click. So let's just copy or Shift right click, and we can go to the other actor, and in the rotation, click paste or Shift left mouse. There it is. So we can copy very, very fast any type of attribute, as long as it's the same, right? If I'm using the value which X, Y, and Z, probably I'm expecting the same values to be copied and pasted. So yeah, that's how we can work with actors inside our level. And whenever we have something working, let's say I already scaled this one, and I will put it here, and I'll press end, and I'll copy the location. There it is. So I have this working, I mean, some kind of structure, right? And I want to play the game to test how everything is working out. Well, we can click on this play button, and when we do, we will immediately be playing from the camera's position. And by default, we get these controls where we can move around with the mouse, and with W, A, S, and D, we can actually move the camera. So we can rotate with the mouse, excuse me, and move around with the W, A, S, D. If we want to not follow the camera location, we can right click and use the button play from here. And now we will go to the place that we select. I'll press escape to finish the play session. And just in case you don't get the play in viewport, you can change it here, the mode of the play session. So if you choose new editor window, a new window will be created and your viewport editor will not be affected by the play session. Now, this doesn't mean that I can go here to the viewport and start moving stuff around, because it's not gonna get updated in our play. So just take that in consideration. Now that we have more experience with the Unreal Editor, what I want to do now is create a little platforming game. So I will show you how to create one from scratch using the assets that Unreal Engine has given us. So the first step is creating the level. So let's click on File, New Level, and you can choose either the empty open world or the empty level. I'm choosing the empty open world so I can show you more stuff about these open world type of levels. The first thing you will notice is that everything's black. There's almost nothing, except here in the outliner that there is some world data layers and world partition minima. For now, let's just ignore this. I will tell all about that in a second. But first, let's add some lighting in the level, right? So we can see whatever thing we place eventually. So the easiest way is to go here in Window and selecting the Environment Light Mixer. Let's click on it, and these are the, let's say, 5 most common stuff that you add to your level in terms of lighting. So here, the lighting will be through the skylight, through the atmospheric light, through the sky atmosphere, and we can start seeing something. We have a sun now, volumetric clouds, now we have some clouds, and the height fog. You can either modify the properties by clicking on the actors, or here by clicking and modifying the properties in the environment light mixer. So it's a cool, fast way of adding some light into your level. Perfect. Let's save it. We don't want to lose our level so quick. So we will go to File, Save Current Level As, and here we will start creating a little bit of the structure of the project. Inside the content folder, I'm going to click on New Folder, and usually this folder should be called either the name of the project, which could be my first Unreal Engine project, or the name of the game or experience or project. So let's call this platform game. Now inside of it, I will create a new folder called Maps. And inside of it, let's set the name of the level. Usually, I'm calling it Maps. Level or Maps will be meaning the same whenever I'm referring to those. It's just a container of actors that makes our level or map. So M for map and underscore, this will be the level 01. Let's save it. You'll see that now in my content drawer, I have those assets. This level auto-generated these needed assets because this is an open world type of level. Now, a good idea, because we may import more stuff so our level looks prettier, is to make your folder a little bit different than the others. So a good way to do it is right-clicking on the platform game, setting a color, and setting it to something that you can easily recognize. Maybe this type of blue, or some Barbie pink. So yeah, let's save everything that we have done. Everything is saved. So yeah, let's continue. But before we continue, let me tell you on how to work with this type of map of the world, open world level. I'll create a new level, and this will be the open world. Sometimes you will see that you have created a lot of stuff in your world, and then go back the next day and you find nothing in your level. Don't worry, this is because of the way an open world level works. Because an open world level is supposed to be very big, like this one. You see, if I try to move my mouse, I'm not moving it that much, right? So let's go to window. Let's go to, where is it? World partition, and let's open the world partition editor. This is the kind of minimap that your open world level can have, and most of the time will have. And you will see that there is a loaded region. Whenever we open, or well, whenever we close and open again the engine, this loaded region may be unloaded. Something like this. I'll just right click on it, unload selected regions. And there will be a lot of people that will be wondering what happened to my level. Well, it's not loaded. And if you see actors that are not being shown, or they have some type of unloaded description here, it will be because of this. So just don't forget window, world partition editor, and you can select what you want to load here. This is where I am. So if I'm moving, let's increase my camera speed. If I'm moving here, then I may want to load only this part. Load region, and there it is. But if I want to load everything, you can select everything and load region. And there it is again. So just take this in consideration when you're working with open world levels. I'll go back to my level and we will continue with our game creation. We're creating a platforming game, but we don't have any platforms. We can start adding some of those through shapes here in the place actors panel, some cubes, and we can scale it to fit our purposes. But if we need some custom shapes, it will be a better idea to use the modeling tools inside Unreal Engine. We have access to them through the modeling mode. We can change mode here. Instead of selection mode, we can select the modeling. This gives us access to the modeling tools. Here we have the Create tab, and here we will add a box. We can modify the properties, but I prefer to add the box and then edit its shape. So we can modify it. If I click to the Model tab, now I will... Oh, I cannot select it because I have not clicked on Accept. So until I click on Accept, then the box is not created. So let's click on Accept. And now that the box has been created, here in Model, the Polygroup Edit is now enabled. So here, now we have access to the faces, to the vertices, and to the edges. So we can start messing around with our modeling tools. Something like this, right? So we have more control over the shapes, and we can select a vertex, and start moving it around, right? Now, I only want a platform, so this is more than enough. I will click on Accept for the changes to take place. And now, depending on how I modified my shape, you will see that the pivot point is in a wrong or weird position. We can fix this very easily also with the modeling tools. We can go to the X form, and here we can edit pivot. Now we can select if we want it in the center, in the bottom, right, whatever we need. I'll just click on the center and again apply the changes by clicking on Accept. Now we can go back to the selection mode, and I will get rid of my shape. I will reset the position to the 0, 0 just for us to have a starting point. And just so we know, this static mesh has been generated inside Unreal, which means it also exists as an asset. Here, static mesh, we can search for the asset by clicking on the browse button. And we will see that it's inside a folder called generated, and this is the user name. Here's the box. We could change the name, but I'll leave it at that for now. Now just remember to save everything, and you will see that I'm saving the map, the box that I just generated, and also a box asset. This is an asset inside our level, and we are saving per asset or per file, and it's a technology called one file per actor, and it's working because we selected the open world level. So for now, let's save everything, and now we have a floor. If the modeling stuff is something to your liking, make sure to check our tutorial on it. There are a lot of cool stuff that you can do with the modeling tools inside Unreal. But now that we have our platform, I don't really know if it's big enough or small enough. And that's because I don't have any reference on how my character will behave in this game. So we need to add something that we can play around with. So the fastest thing that we can do is add a third-person character that comes with one of the samples. To do that, let's go to the content drawer, let's click on add, and let's click on add feature or content pack. Inside of it, we can click on the first person, third person. The top down will not work for our purposes, and the vehicle also won't. So third person, I think, will fit our game better. So let's click on the third person and let's add it to the project. Now when we add a content, any type of content, could be the templates or could be a marketplace asset, it will get added to our content drawer, well, main content folder, right? And it's doing this because I'm using a revision control. But in your case, you won't be dealing with that, don't worry. And here, what we can do is see where these assets have been added. So here we have our content folder. And remember, we only had the platform game folder. Let me close this. Now we have characters that has the actual character, the mannequin character. We have the level prototyping, which adds some meshes. And we have the third person sample content, which includes the map, third person map. We can open it, and if we play it, and let me return to the selected viewport. If we play it, we are controlling a character. And with W, A, S, and D, and spacebar, we can control the character as you would normally expect a third person character to be controlled. So let's press escape to end this session, and let's go back to our map, which should be in platform game, maps, level. And that's why it's so useful to have the folder with another color. Now, the blueprint that we want to add here is this one. Inside of blueprint, third person blueprints, it's the third person character. And there are two ways to play with this character. One is the fastest one, or the kind of kind of dirty way of doing it. You just drag and drop the character, and now in the details panel, I'm going to search for, was it possess? Yes, it is possess, or just type pose and there will be the settings that we need. And in auto possess player, we can select the player 0, which is by default the first player. So whenever we press play, now we are controlling this character. That's the fast and dirty way. But the normal way of controlling a character is through a game mode. A game mode is like a class or a file that contains the set of rules of the game. Now, I'll delete the character. Here, in my third-person blueprint folder, there's already a file called blueprint third-person game mode. And if I open it, you will see that there's only this information of the blueprint because it's completely empty in terms of code. It only gives us some access to the things that we can change, and one of them is the default classes. Here are the classes that will be used for the game. And when I said set of rules, this is one of the sets of rules that we can change. For example, here's the default pawn class, and right now it's pointed to the third person character, which is what we need. So whenever I press play, I'm using the third person character. Let's close it. But you will see that if I don't have the character here and I press play, then I'm just a floating camera. Why does this happen? Because this map is not using the set of rules that this game mode is defining. For this map to use them, we can click here on this blueprint type of button, here in the world override, and by world it means the map, and by map I mean the level. So here, instead of create, we can select the game mode of the blueprint third person game mode. Let's do that. And now when we press play, our character will be created, but in the air, because my camera was in the air. Let's go back to this floor. So whenever I press play, my character will be spawned in the air. And if I manage to click on my floor and click on play from here, then my character will be in the actual floor. Now, there is a way of specifying where do we want our players to start whenever we press play. And it's through a component called, and you have probably guessed it, player start. This actor has, here's this basic, and I said component, I meant actor. This actor, if we drag and drop it, this is the place where our player will start. So if I put it here, now it doesn't matter if my camera is far away. Whenever I press play, then here it is. My character walking around. And now I see that, yeah, it's big enough because it's a platform thing. It's a platforming game, so I will need several platforms for us to actually make the game. So that's how you can add an actor and play with it. It will be a good idea to add some platforms in order for our game to have some challenge. So we can duplicate this mesh. And now we have something to jump towards to. We can see that maybe that jump is impossible. Now we can start modifying our course, but taking in consideration that because we have duplicated this mesh, if I go back to the modeling panel, and in this modeling mode, here I'll go to model, and let's say I go to poly edit, and I want to increase this phase, something like this. When I click accept, all of the other assets will also update themselves. Just take that into consideration. Let's go back to selection. Now, I don't want that constraint to be a hindrance to me. So what I will do is deselect everything here, just like that. Here you will see that I'm not selecting any of these actors, and I will go to the modeling mode again. Now what I will do is create a cube grid type of mesh. So let's click on it, and now this will add a more visible grid to our map. But this grid is useful for us to select the cells, and then by using the pull and push buttons, we can create more geometry. And it's a lot easier. Now, with the pulling, I can pull geometry, and with the pushing, I can delete geometry. Pulling, you can do it with the E key, and pushing with the Q. Now with this, it's a lot easier to create some kind of jumping obstacles. Let's click on accept. And now we have this mesh. And remember, it's the same mesh. Like these 4 blocks are part of the same mesh. Here we have the static mesh. We can double click it to see what's happening. There it is. So this means that it's very useful for prototyping, but I wouldn't use it as a final type of mesh that I use as collisions, right? Because we will decorate some stuff on top of this. Let's press play, and now we can see if our mesh helps us, and that is an impossible jump, it seems. So we can go back to the modeling tools, and remember, I'll go back to the selection. If you want to modify this mesh, you need to select it first, and then go to the modeling panel. And again, here, cube grid, we can start modifying whatever we need. We can even click on the sides and start pulling or pushing. We can create some kind of stairs that way. Accept to apply the changes, and let's press play again. Perfect. Now, what I will do is delete this. I don't need that. And it's a good idea for my player to see where I want it to go. So if I want my player to go that way, it's a good idea to rotate it to the way that we want the player to go. So let's press play, and now immediately is the nature of the player to, oh, you are showing me this place, probably I will need to get there. Now I will edit the map super quick, because what I want to do is just have a little map that we can jump around with. So let's go back to the modeling tools. Let's click again on the cube grid. We can select this, and I wanted to delete it. Now I want to create a platform here floating around. We can go to slide back or slide forward with Shift Q or Shift E. So I want to slide forward, and here I will push, or maybe here. Here I will pull, excuse me, to create a little bit of land here floating around. If I press play, you will see that my map is like this, and I have a gap there. So what can my player do with that gap? And the answer is nothing, because if the player tries to jump towards the goal, they will fail unless we help them. The way that we have to help them is by creating more platforms. So let's just drag and drop, for example, a shape. This will be a cube, and we can put it in the middle, something like that, just so I try to help a little bit, right? And I guess it should be doable. kind of, or almost. Like this, and I'll skip the first part by playing from here. Yeah, and it seems it's not doable. I may have overestimated my jump. And now that we were able to reach this cube, but for sure we won't be able to reach that one. So I'll just again duplicate this one here, and let's right click, play from here, and now it should be able to. If I wasn't bad at platforming, I should be able to do it, right? Yeah, there it is. And yeah, we reach the goal, right? But still, eventually, this will get easier. So let's spice things a little bit. The way I'm going to do that is by making this cube disappear and appear at different intervals of time. To do that, we need to make use of blueprints. To use blueprints is very easy. Blueprints is just a system that Unreal has inside of it to add some functionality, some code, some interaction to any type of actor that we have inside our level. Now, each level has its own blueprint, and we can access that blueprint if we go here, click on the blueprint button, and open level blueprint. This is a level blueprint where we are seeing the event graph. This is where all the code will exist. Here we have some graphs, some function, variables, event dispatchers, and details panel about the settings that we can change in the blueprint level. If you would like a deep dive on what blueprint is, we have already made a video on it. So you can go there. I will give you the basics here, the most fundamental stuff. But there we will go into more detail. Now, I want to make this shape disappear, right? So in order to have access to this shape, I need what it's called a reference. A reference is a way that we have access or control to stuff that happens in the level. And because this is the level blueprint, what I can do to gain access to any actor inside of it is select it, then go to my graph, right click, and create a reference to the cube. This is a reference to this cube, not to this one, because if I wanted to this one, I can right click and it will get a create reference to cube 2. But I only want it to this, to make this cube appear and disappear, right? So let's increase this lovely level blueprint. Now, this is a node-based system, right? And every node will have its own color depending on the type of node it is. If you see a node that has a pin that starts something and it's the color red, it's called an event type of node. An event node will play or will get triggered whenever some specific action happens. These are the two most basic ones. Event begin play is like it says, like it sounds. Whenever you begin play, it starts or it triggers. So we can immediately see this node in action if we use this handy little tool called print string. This node is called again print string, and here we have it. Let's click on it. When you see a node that is blue and has an input, an in execution pin and an out execution pin, then you know that this is a function. Now this functionality makes some type of string, some type of message display on our viewport. So if it says hello, then whenever I press play, and let's go back to my map, and you will see that this is dirty, needs to be recompiled. Let's not worry about it just yet. If I press play, you will see the hello print string. So we know that this gets triggered only once we press play, and this gets triggered. The tick is different. The tick runs every frame. So if I just, excuse me, we can modify these wires by either right-clicking, break this link, or by alt-clicking, and I'm holding alt right now. I can click on it, and it will be broken. And I can also hold Control and drag the connection. So now I'm going to print hello every frame. So how does that looks like? And looks like this. Not exactly too clean, right? And every message that you print, you can also find it in the output log that we saw at the start. Right. So I want this cube to disappear every some seconds, right? That's the idea. So I don't need this print string. I'll just delete it. And the way to make the cube disappear is by setting the hidden type of attribute. So from the cube, if I want to hide the cube, I need to drag the pin, drop in, and this will make our selection of functionality be context sensitive, and that's why there is this button. It will be context sensitive to what the cube can do. In this case, the cube is an actor object, so an static mesh actor object. So yeah, it's an actor because it can be placed on a level, and that's something that we have repeated over and over again. Now let's type hide, and just by typing hid, we see there's a set hidden in game, set actor hidden in game, set hidden scene captures, etc. So I'll use this one, set actor hidden in game. I'll connect it, and now whenever my games begin, the actor will change its hidden in game setting. Now that setting is here. Right now is false, because if you see a pin colored red, it's just asking for a true or false type of input. So right now it's false. If I click on it, it's true. So the new hidden value will be true. Now let's see how that looks. Now, this compile button that I ignored a little bit earlier is the way that we can make Unreal understand what our code will do. Let's compile. And it will be green because it didn't find any errors. Now, it's only checking compilation errors. It's not checking logic errors. So if something is green but it's not working correctly, it probably is your logic. But if something is not, for example, this set actor hidden in game, I break the link. Now, self, the target is an actor, and self is the level blueprint itself. So it doesn't know which actor I want to hide. So let's press compile. And well, it seems that it's not bothered about it. So if this was other class, then this will throw me an error. But I mean, this is still a logical error because I'm not actually telling the cube to hide. So let's compile again, let's save it, and let's go back to the level and see what happens to my cube. Play from here, and now my cube is not there. If I jump towards it, it's still there, but I just can't see it. So the collision is there, but I can't see it. So I should probably deal also with the collision. So again, from the cube, I will drag and drop another node and just type collision. Now let's search collision. Let's go a little bit upwards, and here it is. Set actor enable collision. Let's click on it, and again, these are some of the most well-known nodes that you will be facing eventually and repeatedly, so you will eventually remember them. Don't worry about remembering them just yet. Just follow the logical sense or the logical steps for stuff to happen, and then you can start maybe writing down the most useful nodes that you find. Now, this is not running unless I also connect the execution pin to this node. And I need to determine if I want the collision to be there or not. So new actor enable collision right now is in false, so I'm disabling the collision. If this is in true, I enable the collision. So false is the one that I want. Let's compile and let's press play. And I wanted to press play from here, so I don't need to jump around. Now if I try to reach it, now the collision is not there. And that's exactly what we wanted. Now, this is all great, right? But I need a way to enable my cube. So what I can do is copy and paste with Control C, or we can right click, copy, and here I will paste with Control B. And to re-enable my cube, I will want it for the hidden in-game to be false, and for the collision to be true. Now, when do I want this to happen? Well, maybe after a few seconds of it being hidden. So here, we will just drag and drop from this execution pin and type delay. There is a delay node. Let's select it. And this delay node has a duration. I will put maybe 3 seconds so we can, 2 seconds so we can see it. And when this delay gets completed, I'll connect it to enable my cube, right? So we are making it visible again, and we are enabling the collision. Now, how does this look? Now, the compile, it's a good way, it's a good habit to press on it every time you change something and you want to test your level. But if you press play, it will auto-compile for you, unless there is an error that the compiler can't understand. So let's press play from here. After 2 seconds, it should appear there. Perfect. And I missed the jump. But you will see that it's not repeating itself, and I do want it to repeat. So the way that we can handle this is through custom functionality. Because you don't really want to, this worked, so let me just copy and paste everything and delay this again, and I will copy and paste. This is just not the way to do it, because now it will run 1 time or 2 times, but if I wanted more, then would I need to copy and paste everything? Well, no. First, it is a good idea to define the behaviors that we want. For example, this makes the cube show up, so I want to encapsulate that. And we can do that through a custom event. Remember that we talk about events, these get triggers automatically. Well, there are events that we will tell them when to trigger. So I will right click here and I will type custom event. This custom event will be activate block or platform. And I want this activation to run this code. So I will copy and paste it. And I also need another custom event. I will copy and paste this custom event and I'll rename it deactivate block. And this will be my deactivation. Oh, excuse me. It's the other way around. This is deactivating the block and this will activate it. Now, perfect. Activation makes the block, the cube appear and enable the collision, and deactivation makes my cube disappear and disable the collision. Now we can replace this by just deactivate. We can call our own custom our own custom event, excuse me. And from here, activate. So we have encapsulated this behavior, and it's a good idea to do this. One, because it's cleaner, looks cleaner. And two, if I wanted to change something here or add a new node, if I do it everywhere where it's being called, it's updated. If I just copy and paste like 10 times the same functionality, I will need to make 10 times the same edit to my code. So let's see if it's working exactly the same. Yeah, it is. Perfect. But I want this to loop, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'll just remove this with alt click and move it to the last part of the activate block. So let me pin this. Let's dock it to the sidebar so I have more space to show you the nodes. The activate block will run the deactivation code. It will run a delay and then it will activate it. When it activates, it will run the activation code, and after a delay, and I'm copying and pasting it, I want it to deactivate the block. Now it's looping because whenever it gets here, it will run this code, delay, activate block, and it runs this code again. I just need to call one of these two at the start. So maybe I wanted to start with deactivation. And that's pretty much it. Now we have it, an infinite loop of activation and deactivation. So let's go to the level. Let's press play and let's play from here. Easier. 2 seconds passes and it does this. This is something very common. Like you run your code once and it doesn't work as you expected, right? And here we can use that special node that we looked before, which is called the print string. Oh, and I added to the tick. I really don't need the print string now. But if you need to know, oh, disactivated, let's just print a string like hello. You can say activation. And then you will see that something is not right. Activation. Yeah. And this is my bad. I connected it to the tick, and I should delete the tick. I really don't need the tick. So yeah, it's very common to make mistakes. And as you can see, it happens to me too. So don't get discouraged if something is not working correctly, because it's a matter of learning, right? And yeah, now let's see if it's working correctly. It should. Let's press play from here. Now when it gets activated, after 2 seconds, deactivates, and again. And we can have our level be beaten, right? Perfect. Now, what happens if I want also this cube to do that activation and deactivation? Again, we can also copy and paste this code and change this reference, right? Like click on it, create a reference, and then connect it. But let's say I add a third cube. You see where I'm going, right? It's not sustainable to copy and paste for each cube that I want to add. So this is where a blueprint actor can help us a lot. So this is a level blueprint. It's a level that only it's a blueprint, excuse me, that only works for this level. But if I wanted to replicate the functionality for each cube, then I will need to copy and paste a lot of stuff. So let's create a blueprint with this cube in consideration, right? Now, the easiest way to create a blueprint based on something in the level is by selecting it, going to the blueprint button, and convert selection to blueprint class. From here, I'm going to select harvest components, and I'm going to select the actor class. Remember the actor? Yeah, anything that can be put inside the level is an actor. And you will see that there's a lot of stuff that can be put inside a level. So the actor is the parent class of our blueprint because it gives us the ability to have a location, a rotation, and a scale. We don't need sound, so let's just use the parent actor. Again, I go more in depth into what an actor is or what are classes for in our blueprint fundamentals video. So I will put a link as a card. If you haven't seen it before, it should be in the description or as a video card. So let's give it a name. This will be blueprint underscore disappearing platform. And let's select a path where to store it. It should be inside my platform game. I want to create a new folder. This will be the game elements folder. And inside it will be a folder called platforms. And let's select it. Okay, now it has the correct path, and let's click on select again, harvest component, and actor. Let's select. And now I have the cube here in my viewport. And this has become, if I see my outliner, a blueprint disappearing platform. And the type is no longer like this box, like static mesh actor, is now a custom blueprint. If I click it, I can access the blueprint again. And here the parent class is actor. Now, main differences on a level blueprint and a blueprint. The level blueprint only has an event graph. And it has access to all the objects inside the level, as long as you click on them and then you right click and create a reference to them. A blueprint, on the other side, has its own components. So this is another term that you will hear a lot. Components. What are components? They are special classes, special functionality that can be reused inside of blueprints. A blueprint will be almost like a group of components. This is a static mesh component, which means that it's a component that lets me see a static mesh. I can add more components. Let's say I want to add a light. Here's a point light component, and now my blueprint has two components. And I can't see the light, so I'll just change the light color just to show you that something is happening there. So I can add more components on top of my blueprint depending on what I need my blueprint to do. If this was maybe a vehicle, I will add a mesh for the vehicles, meshes for the wheels, maybe lights for the lights of the vehicle, and many more stuff like collisions, etc. Right? So my blueprint, this disappearing platform, is super simple, right? It's just a cube that will disappear. Now, I added this light, and I wanted to add something extra because I wanted to show that whatever you do in the blueprint, it will get reflected on the blueprints that you have placed in the level. This is because, and I will search my blueprint, should be in content, platform game element, platforms. Here is my blueprint. And we can, because this is an actor, the parent class is an actor, I can drag and drop it to my level. When I do this, I'm not creating the blueprint itself. I'm creating an instance of this blueprint. And because it's an instance that follows this blueprint, I'll put this like here. Whenever something changes in my main blueprint, for example, the color of the light, all the other blueprints, all the instances of this blueprint will get updated. And I'll ramp up the intensity so you can see the actual light. So you modified the blueprint and all the instances get modified. But what happens if I modify an instance? Well, this is an instance of this blueprint. Right now, I'm modifying the location and nothing is happening to the base blueprint or to the other instances. And if I click on an instance of any blueprint, I will have access to the components inside that blueprint. So if I click on point light, I can modify the color. Maybe I want a yellowish type of light. Click on OK. But you will see that my main blueprint doesn't change and the other instance also doesn't change. So take in consideration that whenever you're working with blueprint, whenever you modify the base one, everything else gets modified. All right, let's delete the light because I no longer need it. It was just a little example, right? So I want this blueprint to appear and disappear. So I'll just copy and paste the code that I did here. And I'll just copy this functionality. Copy. I'll go to my blueprint disappearing platform. I'll paste it and Ctrl V works fine. And it will tell you that it doesn't know what activate block means or deactivate block also means. For now, just do nothing. Let's confirm. And you will find this here. This is calling a deactivate block that doesn't find it yet. But let's hit compile. Now, this is showing me an error, but now that I have compiled, this custom event should get linked. So to do that, just right click, refresh the node, and now it finds it. And here also right click and refresh the node. This here is an unknown value because the level is the one that has access to the cube, not the blueprint itself. So a level blueprint does have access to any type of actor inside the level, but the blueprint that we create doesn't. It's like a little capsule that has only what it has as a component. But for our luck, and it says blueprint bad because it's not finding this value. We're lucky because here in the static mesh, we can set either the static mesh component, which is the cube, or we can set the actor itself. Because this is an actor, remember, parent class actor. So I just need to delete this cube and delete this one. Now the target is self. Self is this blueprint. So now we can compile and we shouldn't have any errors. Now my viewport will show my actual cube and this code should work the same. Now let's trigger it by deactivating the block or activating it. Let's go to the begin play, deactivate block. And let me delete that stuff here. And again, I'll dock this to the sidebar so I have a little bit more space to show you the code. Now this is the same functionality I have here. So I will delete everything in my level blueprint. I'll compile and save it. And here in the blueprint, I will also save and compile. Now let's see in my level what happens. Both of the instances of the blueprint are now working correctly. Or well, as expected. And we can duplicate this. I said that we can duplicate this. Let's duplicate it with Alt. I'll delete this cube. And now the three of them will have the same functionality. Pretty cool, right? The not so cool thing is that all of them are appearing and disappearing at the same time. But we can play around that by going into the blueprint and we can add a delay node here. And that's not how you spell delay. Here it is, delay. If I put 1 second, well, compile and save, everything will be delayed by a second and then it will start. But I can either make this a random number, random, float in range, and I want it to be between 1 second and 2 seconds. Let's save, compile, go to my map and play from here. Now, each of the blueprints will run the code and will get a different random number. So that's how we can add some randomization in our mix. But actually, this is not how platforming works. You actually want the player to learn the pattern, right? And if it's random, then you don't really have that much control as a game designer. So what I'm gonna do, instead of using a random number, is to make that number into a value that a game designer can change. This means that I will drag and drop from this value and I will promote it to a variable. This variable name has gotten its name from here, duration. So I can call it duration before, and I press F2, which is the same, right-clicking, rename, and I will call it duration before start. Now, let's see my details panel. I need it back. Whenever I click on a variable, I will have access to the value. But here it says, please compile the blueprint. I'll do that. Compile. And now in my details panel, I have the value of the variable. It can be 1, can be 2, whatever I need. Now, what's a variable? This is also something that you will find or hear a lot of times. A variable is just a little box that holds a value. A variable can have many values, so you need to specify if it's red, which means Boolean, which is a true or false value. If it's an integer number, integer means that a number without decimals. Float is a number with decimals. Name, string, text is just text-based stuff. Vectors is a value with X, Y, and Z values. And the same applies to rotation and transformation, is just scale, rotation, and location. So we have a lot of variables, but again, if you want to know more about those, go to our blueprint video. I go more in depth there. Here, what I only want to do is have this value that can be edited by our game designer. So if you want to make a variable public for edition, you just need to open its eye. This is the same as going to the details panel and here making it instance editable. And if it's instance editable, you will see that if I close this, the eye is being closed. So I'll open it again. Let's compile, let's save, and let's go back to the map. Remember, I click on an instance. This is an instance of the blueprint, and I change the color of the light. Well, now that my variable is instance editable, I will have access to it here in the details panel. Here it is, duration before starting. And this can be 0.5. If I click the next instance, you will see that it's following the base class value, 1. I will leave this as 1. And the next one, I will change it to 1.5. And now we have a way, let's play from here, to controlling how the platforms will actually appear. And now it looks more like a platforming game. Yeah, and it seems I sucked, so I don't want to waste your time. You already have seen how this works, and you can modify the values to your liking. We already have a game. We have a clear goal, some obstacles, and a way to navigate the map. I have shown you what Blueprints is capable of doing, and it's a lot more powerful than it seems. What I want to show you next is the concepts of materials. Materials are files that will determine how do our assets get rendered. How are they visible? So it's easier just to show you. Let's say I want to change the color of this white cube. Well, I just need to create a material. I'll right click material. It's very common to create materials, just like it's as common to create blueprints. So this material will be called maybe white. So it's the base material of this. Let's open it. And inside this editor, there will be a node that will specify how does my object will get rendered. Now, this is one to understand is the base color. I'll just, I can drag and drop, I believe, from here. Constant 4 vector. This lets me create a color, and I can change it to white. And now you see that it has changed, right? Now, this also has some properties. A metallic property, and this is a constant, just a constant, is a value that goes between 0 and 1. And depending on the value, you will get an object that is not metallic or that can be very metallic. Roughness, that is another very common one, will let the engine know how rough is the material. If it's very rough, then it will absorb a lot of light. This is because the materials is a system based on a physically based rendering system. So it's affected by physical laws. So a roughness, a high value in the roughness attribute will absorb more light. But a lower value will make our material super reflective because the light rays can reflect very easily. Yeah, so our material dictates how our asset looks. In my case, I only want a material that is the color white, and I'll duplicate this, and this will be called red. I'll open it, and usually you want to create a material instance. I don't want to get that in depth. We have a video that shows all about materials inside Unreal Engine. So again, I'll create a base color. I can also press the 4 key, 4, or constant 4. If I press 4 and click, it creates this node. So it's another way to do that. And let's connect all the channels. And this one will be red. And what I wanted to do is change the material. So I let the player know that it will deactivate. So these are my two materials. And what I'm going to do in my blueprint disappearing platform is that here, before I deactivate the block, I'm going to change the material of this static mesh component. So right now it's selected. I'll drag and drop it to my blueprint, to my event graph. And here I will put set material. The element is 0, is fine, because here if I select the component, it only has one element. And I will connect it just like this. I will select my white material. Here it is. And I'll add a little bit of delay so it shows. Oh, excuse me. Here I should select my red material. Here it is, red. And there will be a delay of maybe 0.4 seconds. So the player knows that it's about to disappear. And when I activate the block, I will copy and paste this material. And I will put it at the start. And here, when the block gets activated, I will set the white material. Pretty simple stuff. So let's select everything, move it around. And now we should be able to see what we have done. So let's test it very quickly. Play from here. And now you see that the material changes before actually disappearing. Why doesn't it happen at the start? Oops. Play from here. Because here in the blueprint, we're starting by deactivating the block. So maybe we should start with activating the block. It's either that, or here in the activation, we can, yeah, let's do that. Let's not modify the actual logic, the start logic. Let's just move these nodes here. The delay will work. As always, let's break this link. And before actually making the block deactivate, yeah, because it makes more sense, at least for me, for this to exist inside the deactivation of the block, because making it red will mark the start of the deactivation process. Again, you are free to make your own logic. Whatever seems to make more sense to you will be the best. And the blueprint system, I know I thought I finished talking about the blueprint system. You can select these nodes, press the letter C, and this will create a comment node. And you can actually, it's like grouping the nodes, and it's a good idea to let yourself know. So if let yourself know what is this code doing. So if you come back in the future, you don't need to read node by node. You just need to read the comment and that's it. So we can put block, or well, platform activation and deactivation. And this is something that a lot of programmers do. They just take the name of the events that happens and they just plop it in the comments. I mean, this doesn't make much sense because you can just read the event. You can just call it platform behavior. This type of comment makes more sense to me. And if I'm looking it from afar, then I can just see, oh, platform behavior. What's inside it? Oh, activation and deactivation. Makes more sense to me. Now we can press play and it should work like we intended. The last thing that I wanted to show you here was to make your level actually Unreal. Unreal has a lot of tools that will help you decorate this level, especially the free assets inside the marketplace and also the integration with Quixel. If we go here, add, and let's go add Quixel content, let's click on it, it will open, and let's allow the access, it will open the Quixel Bridge window. Because Unreal bought Quixel, we have access to Quixel assets for any type of project. So as long as you are signed in, and I'm not, so let me sign in, I will pause the video. Okay, now I'm signed in. And now that I'm signed in, I'm able to not only browse the catalog of Quixel, but also add it to my project. Now, let's just see what assets we can use. And what I'm gonna do is just search for a collection here. Could be this modular building, could be Arctic Ice. Let's see some collections. Let's click on this globe. Now we go to collections. Let's click on environment. And here on natural, I will be using the collection limestone quarry. Inside of it, and let me dock it to my editor, we have materials. You want to, for example, paint your cube with this type of texture, you can do it. We also have assets, 3D models, rocks, and some grass. So it's very useful actually. So how do you import something to your project? It's very easy. It's, for example, I want this cliff. Let's just download it or just click it. You will see that it is a 3D asset, it's a model. You will see the size. You will see that it's open, so the back of this rock is actually visible, and some related assets. You can choose if you want low quality, medium quality, high quality, nanite. I will choose medium quality. I should choose low quality actually. It won't make that much difference, but medium quality is fine. Let's just download it. And after it downloads, we can add it. Now by adding it, a content browser window will open, and this window will show me where is my asset. Let's go back to the level, and now we can place the asset in our level. Like I told you, the back was open, but here you see that now we have this awesome asset in our level. We could start decorating a lot of stuff with this. Something like this. And it will be a good idea for you not to use that grid, because it will make things a little bit more unnatural. Something like this, maybe. So that's how you can import stuff from the Quixel Bridge into your project. What I want you to do now is let your imagination fly. What I'm gonna do is keep doing what I just taught you on how to add assets to your level and create a little scene that I can use as a level. So I'll just decorate this part, and I probably will just fast forward this part of the tutorial, because you probably have created your own level and you will probably want to decorate it yourself. So yeah. Here I have decorated some of my platforms using the Quixel Megascans assets. And you will see that parts of my level are still using the cube grid, the mesh that we created. And I mean, it still works, but yeah, it's not working exactly as I wanted. What I need to do is fill these spaces. An easy way to do it is go into the modeling tools, choose that polygon extrude type of tool, and then just draw your polygon. Something that can fit your irregular shape. Yeah, there it is. And we can extrude it a little bit. Something like this, right? Let's click on complete. And let's go back to my selection mode. I'm doing this so I don't need to rely on this mesh, which is, oh no, that's the starting mesh. This mesh, which is the cube grid, this one. So if I move it to the right, and let's just put my grid to 500 and enable it, just so it's easier to snap back to my project. And now I can disable the grid, and I just need to rotate it a little bit in order for my mesh to fit. Yeah, and you will see that it's gray, right? Let's play. It should have collision. Perfect, it does. And in order for it not to be gray in Bridge, you just need to import some of these materials. It's also called, how do they call them here? Is it materials? Do they call them materials? I believe they call them surfaces. Yes. Yes. Surface. Yeah. So let's say you want to fill it with this. Just download and import them. And this is a material that we can drag and drop on top of our static meshes. And then you see that it has immediately changed the look of our mesh. So it's no longer gray. And you can find whatever material you think fits better. That one looks nice. That's actually, yeah, that's what I wanted. And now you see that my rock is actually looking better, my platform. Now, you saw that when I press play, there was some part that didn't have collision and I end up falling. That part. It's a good idea to check the collision of your meshes. And you can check with the collisions of the player. You can know if your player will collide with a mesh if you go to this view mode here in lit. Remember, I think I told you you could go to the unlit mode if by any chance your map was too dark, or wireframe if you want to see the wireframe of everything. Well, there's a player collision here, and you will see everything that has collision and that will collide with the player. In this case, only the mesh that I added is colliding with the player. So it will be a good idea to either modify this mesh so it matches, let's go back to the lit mode, that it matches with the actual collision, or to get this mesh, which is the one that should have collision, I'm going to right click it, going to click on edit. This will open the static mesh editor, and we can see the collision of my static meshes here. Let's go to collision, and right now I don't have the remove collision button, so it means that it doesn't have a collision. So here I can also try to check for the collision if I click in simple collision or complex collision. Complex collision will be the collision that I could use if I wanted to use each vertice, which I don't really want to do that because there are too many faces, right? And we really don't need it. We need a simple collision so our game runs smoothly. So let's create one. Easiest way, just put a box collision and be done with it. Now you can see the collision. Let me remove it. Let's remove the collision. Or you can use any of these options. Maybe 26 faces, 18 faces. Like, could do the job, right? If you want a little bit more of a custom collision, you can convert boxes to convex or auto-convex collision. If you choose auto-convex collision, you can use this Hull count, max hull bursts, hull precision, and when you press apply, it will try to make a collision that somehow fits the actual static mesh. And it has created like 4, in my case only created two collisions that are separated, but when they are working together, they somehow fit the actual shape of my static mesh. By doing this and saving, now everywhere where I'm using this asset, which I also used it here, if I go back to the player collision view mode, you will see that there's now a new collision. So if I go back to my lit mode and I'll start using Alt 4, so it's a little bit faster, at least for me. Let's go press play. You will see that this rock now has a collision. That that one didn't. Probably should enable some collision. I'll play from here. And now this other rock also does have collisions. So once you are decorating, make sure that you're also testing your game and making a collision type of pass whenever you think that everything has been solved, right? So yeah, I will need to add collisions for this mesh, and whenever I do it, I'll press Ctrl E, it's the same. Now I only need collisions for this part, right? So I could just create a box collision and modify this box collision to something that I can use. You don't really only have to like click and see what you get. You can also modify the boxes that you are getting. So I mean, I can have something like this, save, and then whenever I see my player collisions, here's the view modes, you will see that we have extra collisions, right? Because every mesh that was using this type of asset has those collisions. Probably you will want something a little bit more more similar to the shape. So yeah, I'm just going to delete the box. You can select the box and press delete with your delete key. And then again, auto convex collision, I'm going to apply it. Something like this. It's fine for me. It's a good idea to keep checking the performance of your game. If the performance uh, is worse after you added some collisions, then make sure to try to simplify the collisions. Yeah, this should be fine. And now when I press play, I can step on this. This one doesn't have collisions, but that is something that I will do in... Yeah, I'll speed up the process again, just so you don't need to see me adding collisions to everything. And I mean, I'll just repeat the process that I just taught you. So yeah, don't worry about it. I'll return my cube grid just to see where some collisions I have been missing. And yep, let's continue. Something that you may run into is trying to hide the imperfections of the meshes that you're using. And that's why I prefer to use closed meshes. Here in the bridge, if you select any type of 3D asset, it will tell you if it's open or if it's closed. It's easier to work with closed meshes because the magic of having a good closed mesh, for example, this slab that I was using before. Where is it? Is it that one? Okay, this one. It actually works wonders because even though it's one asset, I mean, if you just duplicate it like this, you can clearly see that it's the same asset. But what happens if I rotate it like this? Could you tell me that this is the same rock? No. And your players won't either. So just by having one asset and rotating it in clever ways, you can actually get more than 8 different types of uses. And also these closed meshes are very useful to decorate part of your maps and to hide any type of imperfection that you would like. For example, this one right here. This is not looking very natural. Well, let's just put an asset. So I'll put an asset to kind of rescue me. Just so the transformation or the transition between this color to this one is a little bit more smoother. Again, I can rotate it in very interesting ways just to try to tell the story of this part of the mountain. And you see that it's very, very easy. Very easy to do indeed. Something like that. Yeah, looking a bit better. I mean, I'm not entirely happy on the color of this one, but let's just continue. I've kind of finished the thing that I wanted to decorate. And here, where is my cube grid? Here. If you're still looking at your cube grid, you can hide it just by doing this. Now, if you press play, you should be able to see it again. So we will eventually delete it. Okay? But I just wanted to decorate the background because it was a little bit empty. So I created this type of mountain made of all the cliffs and meshes. And it's not a complete mountain, by the way. So I can group these assets and then duplicate them. It's as easy as just selecting them by holding shift and then just right clicking, and you can group stuff, or just pressing Ctrl G. But if later on I want to make changes, if I change something that I duplicated, then I would need to change it for every other mountain that I duplicated. And that's not exactly a good way to do it, right? Let's just make the example. I'm pressing Alt to duplicate stuff. If I rotate this rock, you will see that this other rock doesn't rotate, right? So that's what we want to avoid. What I'm going to do is select everything here, and it may be easier if I go to, instead of using my perspective camera, I will go to the top. Here is the top. If you're not seeing it like this, it's because I choose here delete. You can choose by default the wireframe. And here you navigate by right-clicking and dragging the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and the left click to select. So I'm going to select everything that's here. Just taking consideration, and I will go again to my perspective view, or Alt G, that by doing that, I'm also selecting the sky, I believe. Or maybe not. I'm not selecting the sky. Yeah. Oh, it's because I'm not using an sky sphere. That's why. Yeah, don't worry. By doing that, if you were using the default map, then you would have selected the sky sphere, but in our case, no. So yeah, that's an easy way then to select all the assets that we have in one part of the map. Now what I will create, by right-clicking on those assets, level, I want a path level actor. We can leave the pivot here in the center and press OK. I need to save it somewhere, and I will call it path level actor, and this should be mountain. If you will have many mountains, this could be mountain 1, 2, whatever. So let's save it, and also save the blueprint related to it that will be created automatically, right? So with this saved, it means that now when I select the mountain, it selects all of it, and it will be easier to position them and also to scale them like that. Right, so if my player is going to start here, I want to see how my player will see the actual mountain. So I can move them here, maybe rotate it, press play again, and I can see how the mountain looks. So should probably scale it, but scale it in all the axes, something like this. And another cool trick to return to the position where you wanted to look for stuff is by using bookmarks. I'll press play, and this is the default look that I want to use, right? We can go here, bookmarks, set bookmark, and you will see that with Ctrl 0, 1, or 2 up to the 9, you can create these bookmarks. What's a bookmark? Let's create the set bookmark 1, Ctrl 1. Now when I'm moving around the level, if I press the number 1, I will go back to that bookmark. Pretty cool stuff. So with that, then we can start making more mountains, just so I have something in my background. No, that's not it. Something like this. Yeah, maybe in the background could also be something like this. Now, let's say that I want to add something here or change something. Well, if I want to change something in my packed actor, let's right click and let's search for edit. You will see that now everything turns gray and now I'm editing this actor. And I'm going to press F. And let's say I want to add another mesh here. I'm going to just duplicate this one. Something like that. I mean, you can really tell that it's the same mesh, but it's just an example. Okay, so now that I just did this, what I can do in order to save my actual packed actor, it's to commit the change. So to commit the change, I'll just right click, level, commit. By committing the change, what I just have done is change this packed actor, but also every other one. So that's very useful whenever I have a lot of the same asset working for me. Something like this. Now, if I press play, I will have more mountains in my line of sight. Finally, the last thing that I want to add to my map is a little bit of more height fog, just to hide the imperfections here. So for example, I'm going to search for my height fog here. I'm going to type height fog. Here it is. I'm going to select it in the details panel. I'm going to search for fog height follow. And we can change how the fog will affect. So now you don't really know that there is nothing else at the bottom. You are assuming that you are so high up that you can't see the bottom. And I can increase the fog density if I wished. So with this, I just need to position it in a way that I will not be able to see it. Let's go to my bookmark 1. And let's say that I want to place this here. Can I still see a little bit of it? There it is. The same with this one. There you go. Now if I press play, and I'm going to save before pressing play, I don't want to crash, I will see this. And I should probably copy and paste this one. And we can go to the top view. And I can duplicate it, stuff here. Oh, let's go back to the perspective and see how this looks. Play. Yeah, pretty cool, right? So you can play around that. And now that we have finished with my level, I can delete the actual cube grid. Let's search for it. Grid, cube grid. I can't see it. I'm going to enable the visibility and delete it. Now I have my platforming level with some assets. Oh, I missed the jump. So yeah, that's it for this map. So that's it for this tutorial. You have learned how to use Unreal, all the basics, how to install it, how to import a character, import assets, use the modeling tools, create some blueprints for gameplay and more functionality, and use materials to decorate your map. Also, you have learned how to light a level from scratch. So yeah, hopefully this is something that can be the first stepping stone for your game development career, or well, not necessarily. You can use Unreal for any type of project, maybe movies, archviz, and some virtual production. My name is Ram, and hopefully we will see you in the next video.